Hello students, today we read our first lesson, A Triumph of Surgery by James Herroit from our supplementary book Footprints Without Feet. So let's read it. The writer, who is a veterinary doctor, was very worried about Tricky, the pet dog of Mrs. Pemfrey. The dog was very fat, had bloodshot eyes, and tongue lolled out of his mouth. Mrs. Pemfrey told the writer, Mr. Herroit, that Tricky wanted energy food, so she fed him with malt, cold liver oil, and Horlicks. The more she fed him, the weaker he grew. Being greedy, he could eat his meal many times a day and was not taking ring throwing exercise as the gardener was suffering from backache. Mr. Herroit advised Mrs. Pemfrey to cut down Tricky's feet and gave him more exercise, and Tricky was a pampered dog. He had a whole wardrobe of coats. The dog then lost all appetite and became listless. Listless means lack of energy. He spent all time laying on a rug and painting. The veterinarian suggested that he be hospitalized. Mrs. Pemfrey was in tears and she almost swooned. Swooned means lost consciousness. Parting from her pet was very painful. Mr. Herroit took the dog to his clinic to make hospital life for the dog very comfortable. Mrs. Pemfrey sent to the clinic dog beds, cushions, toys, coats, etc. At the hospital, other dogs came round Tricky, sniffed for a few seconds, and finding him uninteresting, they ignored him. For 2 days, Tricky was given no food and kept on water. His listlessness was gone, and he began taking interest in his surroundings. Soon, other dogs became friendly and played with him. At feed time, Tricky joined other dogs to take part in the eating competition. An extra bowl was put for him. He began to play with other dogs and become an accepted member of their group. All this while, Mrs. Pemfrey rang up Mr. Herroit a dozen times a day to inquire about her dog. Learning that Tricky was convalescing. Convalescing means recover from his illness. Rapidly she sent him fresh eggs and bottles of wine. This rich food was enjoyed by Mr. Herroit and his fellow veterinarians. It was a temptation to keep Tricky permanently hospitalized, but after a fortnight means after 15 days, Mrs. Pemfrey was informed that the dog had recovered and she could take it back home. Within minutes, Mrs. Pemfrey arrived at the hospital in her car, and Mr. Herroit picked up Tricky from the company of the other dogs and took him to this lady. The dog saw his mistress and got into her lap. The unused dog beds, cushions, and coats were also given back to Mrs. Pemfrey.